Hello, welcome to the conversation here on New Central Television, where we highlight latest political development around the continent. I'm not here alone. I'm joined by
Rita, Omodia, it's so good to be here again. It's another edition of the conversation right here on New Central TV. And as Gbenga rightly talked about, we're looking at a major highlight political stories that are caught around the continent. And on Wednesday, we discussed the coups in Mali, and we also discussed the ECOWAS sanctions on Mali. And so far, we've had reactions. We've seen people stranded due to the ECOWAS sanctions placed on Mali. But right before we get deep into the conversation, let's take a look at the latest African headlines.
The New Central Studios, I'm Felicity Ezewike here with the latest African headlines. We begin in East Africa, where the United Nations says at least 108 civilians have been killed in January in a series of airstrikes in the northern Tigray region of Ethiopia. Kenya security forces have reportedly killed 3 Al-Shabaab terrorists in Sakaba, Mandera County. The killings occurred during a police raid where security forces also destroyed the terrorists' camp, logistical capabilities and paraphernalia. In West Africa, more than 12 people, including a senior army officer, are currently in custody in Burkina Faso after a suspected plot to destabilize institutions was uncovered this week. In southern Africa, Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa has handed power to the vice president for 3 weeks. This is as the president begins his annual leave on Friday. And in the north, Morocco's Royal Navy has reportedly intercepted more than 177 immigrants in the South Atlantic coast. A military source says the immigrants, mostly from sub-Saharan Africa, included 52 women and 20 children that were facing difficulties on board makeshift inflatable boats when they were rescued. African Headlines continues with our coverage of the COVID-19 pandemic across Africa. In East Africa, Ethiopia's Ministry of Health recorded 2,131 new COVID-19 cases in the past 24 hours, taking the nationwide tally to over 453,000. Uganda is set to destroy over 400,000 doses of expired COVID-19 vaccines at a time when less than half of the targeted 22 million people have been vaccinated. In West Africa, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control (NCDC) has reported 423 new COVID-19 cases. The cases were recorded in 16 states and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. In North Africa, Egypt has reported 1,011 new coronavirus cases, taking the total infections toll up to over 390,000 since the outbreak began in February 2020. This new development is considered the highest single-day toll of coronavirus cases since May 30, 2021. A new study conducted in South Africa suggests that a booster dose of Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine was 85% effective against hospitalization in an area where the Omicron variant was the dominant strain. And in the past 24 hours, Malawi has registered 476 new COVID-19 cases, 431 new recoveries and 8 deaths. This was disclosed by the Ministry of Health. All new cases are locally transmitted. Still talking health matters, but away from COVID-19, Uganda on Friday started a 3-day nationwide polio immunization exercise targeting over 8.8 million children under the age of 5 years. In business, the Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas Limited, NLNG, says its board of directors has approved the supply of 100% of the liquefied petroleum gas, butane and propane produced by the company to the Nigerian market. Kenya's firm Brasra Textiles Limited is setting up a 5.7 billion Kenyan shillings factory in Tanzania's Zanzibar as it targets to get a pie of the region's clothes market. And wrapping things up in sports, the Confederation of African Football has dismissed a formal complaint lodged by Tunisia's Football Federation about their game with Mali ending 13 seconds early. In a statement, CAP said the Africa Cup of Nations Organizing Committee met on Thursday and rejected the protest, but gave no further explanation. And that's all on African headlines at this hour. It's now back to the conversation with Rita and Gbenga.
Thank you very much, Felicity. Now it's time for the conversation. There's quite a flurry of activities already. It's just January and
Yes.
people are already talking about 2023 elections.
And it's a major turning point in Nigeria. Now, for so many reasons, we would know that politics in the year 2023 for Nigeria has made a lot of people start talking. And the reason why is because Nigerians are hoping for a lot more in 2023. And it so shows that Nigeria's political future and democratic existence matters a lot to Nigeria. Now, regardless of political defections, coalitions, and the election of new governments, the problems have always been the same. There is a need for redirection for political systems to be representative. All parts of society must also be included.
And talking about inclusive political participation, it's not only a fundamental political and democratic right, but it's also crucial to building stable and peaceful societies and developing policies that respond to the specific needs of younger generations. For young people to be adequately represented in political institutions, the process and decision making, in particularly during elections, they must know their rights and be given the necessary knowledge and capacity to participate in a meaningful way at all levels. Today on The Conversation, we'll be talking to Victor Ani-Laju. He's a 2023 presidential aspirant in Nigeria. Thank you very much for joining us in The Conversation, Victor.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, News Central, for having me. Thank you.
It's
Africa,
good.
welcome to The Conversation.
Thank you. It's good to have young people, despite all odds, coming out to vie for presidential aspirancies. Now, as it stands, there is a lot of politicking going on already, and some names are beginning to emerge, as you well know. And you seem to be participating as a youth. Do you think there are obstacles to youth participation?
Okay, first of all, I want to say, as of today, Nigerians are clamoring for young and new visionary leaders. I prefer to call them new visionary leaders than to just call them youth, right? Because for over 48 years now, we have dwelled with these old, incompetent leaders or politicians in Nigeria. They have been running the affair of the country, and for obvious reasons, the country is not going forward. The country is not progressing. Rather, the country is retrogressing. So for us to solve this problem of corruption, poverty, and insecurity, we need new visionary leaders to handle the affairs of Nigeria. And not just because I am participating, not just because I'm a political candidate, right? But it's because the people of Nigeria are tired of these old, incompetent politicians that have been in the system for over 48 years.
But Victor,
So
Victor, sorry to butt in there. What obstacles do you think you're going to face participating in politics and aspiring for the 2023 presidential elections?
Okay, now basically as of today, the major obstacle I would say is still the direct and indirect primaries, right? Because we know that if they are going to run the indirect primaries, these same old incompetent politicians are still going to manipulate the primaries election to make sure that they actually becomes the flag bearer of the two major political parties, which is APC and PDP, right? So that is why we are pushing on the government, we're pushing on the President Buhari, we're pushing on the Senate to make sure that they approve the direct primaries, that we allow Nigerians, not godfathers, Nigerians, to actually elect their candidates that will represent them during the 2023 election. I think that is one of the challenges that we are facing as of today. Then two, I would say media, the press have not actually been fair because we see a lot of TV stations maybe exempted to News Central. They actually give more airtime, more platform. So some of these old, incompetent politicians that we know that they have tried and they have failed, right? But I want to encourage that our press, our TV stations, our radio stations should involve and start engaging young politicians, young Nigerians who have aspiration to run for 2023 and hear their vision and hear their idea rather than just
Okay.
featuring people because we feel they have a name or but we've tried them. A lot of them are very, very, very corrupt. Sorry to say, a lot of these old politicians are very, very corrupt because corruption is what gives birth to poverty and insecurity. So we need to talk with young visionary leaders like myself, right? So
Now,
that is why
talking
I'm
about your ambition, Victor, to be president of
Yeah.
Nigeria is quite a Herculean task. Africa's biggest economy, the most populous black nation in the world. We do know how serious politics is here. What informed your decision to want to run for the highest office in the land? And under what political party would you be running?
Okay, so what informed me is that I was born in Nigeria, right? This year I'm 40. So let me say for over 39 years, I have lived in Nigeria. I knew when Nigeria was working. I can tell you that as of today, Nigeria is not working the way it used to work in the 80s, right? And right now we are faced with the greatest challenge of our life. We cannot allow the same set of people that have been leading this country for the past 40 years to keep on leading this country, and the country is not developing. So you need people like myself that have innovative ideas to come into the system and correct this system. As we speak today, there are over 120 million Nigerians that are living below the poverty level. You understand what I'm saying? There are over 14 million Nigerian children that are out of school. We have over 40 million young Nigerians that are capable to work, that are unemployed. As we speak today, Nigeria is the capital of the poorest nation on earth. Nigeria is the second most corrupt country. So tell me, and this is our future. If Nigeria, anything happened to this country today, we in our 40s and in our 30s and in our 20s, we will suffer it the most. Now, these persons, these old incompetent politicians who want to lead this country have enjoyed the benefit of Nigeria. And also they have embezzled a lot of money.
So, Victor, you haven't answered my question about the political platform. And yes, what would you also do differently?
Yes. So
what political party?
First of all, I want to use this media to say I have decided to run on the platform of People Democratic Party, which is PDP. By February, I'll be doing my official declaration. That will be a year to the presidential election. Now, what informed my candidacy, like I told you, is the problems Nigerians are facing today.
Okay, talking about these problems, Victor, you mentioned the platform. Talking about these problems, let's take economy, for example. What major strategy are you going to employ to boost Nigeria's economy?
Youth empowerment. I'm going to make sure that over 4 million Nigerian youths within the space of the first 6 months in the office gain employment. And this employment is going to be targeted at their skills, right? We're going to employ them based on their skills. And we're not just leaving them, we are going to train them. And after training them, we'll give them gainful employment. And they are going to work for us. And we hope to do that in the next 3 years to be able to at least employ over 20 million young Nigerians. And with that, we'll be able to boost Nigeria economy. We'll be able to revamp Nigeria economy. If you don't know, there are over 30,000 young Nigerians that have left Nigeria to either Canada, UK, or US, or even Australia, right? And these are people who are supposed to be working here in Nigeria, making income for themselves. So that is why my first approach will be how to engage Nigerian youth and get them employed. We are going to train them, we are going to empower them, and we're going to employ them. And when we do that, they also
employ them where, Victor? Employ them where?
Okay, we are going to use them for road construction. We are going to be building factories. We are going to be building.
So more like manual labor. Is that what you're saying, Victor?
Skill employment. So there are those that will be trained for agriculture, that those that will be trained for like hairdressing, that those that will be trained for textile made, that those that will be trained for transport, those that will be trained for construction, those that will be trained for logistics. There's a lot to be trained about. Myself, I am a fintech expert, not because I studied fintech in university, but that was the skill I discovered for myself. And today, I run one of the biggest fintech companies in the whole of Africa called ePay, right? We have millions of young Nigerians that have skills, but the government have failed to invest in the skill of young Nigerians. Young Nigerians are the most talented, skillful youth on earth, as you can see today.
But Victor, do you think or believe that young people are politically apathetic? That means not being interested in politics. Do you believe that?
No. The problem is that they are fed up of these same old incompetent politicians giving promises and not fulfilling their promises. In fact, one of the reasons why I am running is to inspire the Nigerian youth. I will tell you today, the Nigerian youth are highly disappointed at the way these so-called old incompetent politicians have led this country, right? But I know that my candidacy have been able to inspire young Nigerians to believe in Nigeria, right? So the problem is not the young Nigerians. The problem is these old incompetent politicians that have embezzled Nigeria's fund. They have brought in corruption to Nigeria. And corruption will always give birth to two things: poverty and insecurity. And that is why you see today, Nigeria as a country, we are faced with poverty and insecurity. But my candidacy, as soon as I become the president of Nigeria, will be able to address the poverty and the insecurity challenges that we are facing today. Nigeria was not like this in 30 years ago, 35 years ago, 25 years ago. We just found out that in the space of 16 years, we'll find out that Nigeria has lost her glory. But I tell you, my candidacy is going to bring it back. And Nigerian youth will be once again proud of Nigeria. And that is why you found out that there are a lot of youth, that's what I was trying to say, a lot of youth today are moving from Nigeria to Europe, to America, to Canada, even to Asia, even to Australia, right? Because they don't believe in these politicians. Because these politicians don't have vision. They are not visionary leaders. They are just there to embezzle and steal the money and property of Nigeria. We have tried them on all platforms, both as governors, both as president, and they have failed woefully, right? So I want us to understand the new narrative.
Victor, apart from these issues now, how important is representative politics at this point, especially for those at the grassroots? Let's have seen youths at the local government level. How important is representative politics at this point?
So that is why I'm running under the platform of PDP, People's Democratic Party. Because as we speak today, they are willing to have young people to come into the party and build what we call the new PDP. And these young people are coming up with visions and ideas, right? So we're reaching out to the grassroots. I'm not just running alone. I have young visionary leaders or new visionary leaders like myself that also will be running for governorship Senate and House of Assembly, even down to the local government chairman, right? So we are coming into PDP in our numbers. I could tell you as of today, we have spoken with a lot of our young entrepreneurs, and we are ready to take that, our entrepreneurship, innovative idea into government. And I will tell you just the way it is. You will start seeing that Nigeria local government system will start working. Because that is one of the
Victor, don't you think you'll be stifled by the powers that be? We know the issue of godfatherism. You're going towards a party that have a lot of political big heads. So don't you think you'll be stifled by these people?
No. My focus is on Nigerian people. You could go to the streets. The people of Nigeria are clamoring for new visionary leaders, young visionary leaders. The only way these godfathers were able to manipulate the system, it was when Nigerians were not aware of what is going on. As of today, Nigerians are aware. If you take the study of what happened during the NSAS, that is an indication. That's the cry of Nigerians, especially the young Nigerians and the women. They are crying for new visionary leaders like myself. I receive phone calls every day. I receive emails. I receive text messages to say to me, we are solidly behind you. So the time of godfatherism has failed. It has come to an end. In fact, let me tell you the truth. 2023 election is very, very important to Nigerians because Nigerians are ready to cast their vote for young visionary leaders, not the so-called old incompetent politicians that have failed. 2023 election.
Victor, you seem to harp a lot on if you emerge president of Nigeria, you'll be president of all Nigerians, not president of the youth. And a lot of problems in this country is that a lot of political parties devoid of ideology. There's a lot of personality politics. And you've been saying you will do this. The young, you think the problems with Nigeria lies with old people. How are you going to make a difference? And what can we do to debate issues and not have personality politics like we've been discussing since?
Okay, first, one thing we need to understand is that the young people of Nigeria today, we make up 80% of Nigeria's population. And out of that 80%, about 60% or 75% of them are jobless, have not been engaged. If we look at what we are talking about today, we are not just talking about a country that is working. Nigeria is not working. So any person that is coming in as the president must start with providing solution. Now, my candidacy is bettered out of providing solution. And the first solution, which is the fundamental solution, is to look at the working class, which still covers the young Nigerians. Now, I am not saying that I'm going to neglect the older generation, but in terms of population, we have more younger Nigerians that are suffering from the incompetency of the older generation. So we need to start from solving the problem, right? And I tell you the truth, when the younger generation are able to work, are engaged, when they are employed, they will take care of the older generation. Everywhere around the world, any country that you see today that is working, 80% of their workforce is from the younger generation, especially in Nigeria, that our demography has a peculiar population of younger people, right? So it's not an issue about me trying to neglect the older generation. No, it's an issue of solving today's problem. You know, Nigeria today's problem, there are two: poverty and insecurity, right? And for us to solve these two problems, we need to engage our younger citizens, right? And once the younger citizens are engaged, they will take care of the older citizens. Now, I could say it the way it is. The older generation have enjoyed Nigeria. Take my word. They have enjoyed Nigeria long enough. Our current president today started earning from Nigerian government from the age of 24. And he's over 80, even if he's lying.
All right, Victor, you've listed so much of your visions and ambitions, which Of course, all the heads have also talked about. I mean, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the national leader of the All Progressives Congress, talked about. And let me finish. I'm getting somewhere. I'm getting somewhere, Victor. They've talked about the ambitions, and a lot of people come with so much visions. So, talking about the issue of corruption, how do you feel generally corruption can be tackled in the country? Because it's not just about you, it's about Nigerians voting for who they want, voting for the right person. So how do you think corruption can be solved?
Okay, thank you so much. Corruption in Nigeria today, like I will tell you, is a system that have been set up by these same old incompetent politicians. So when we get them off from power, we'll be able to solve corruption up to about 50%. Then I am going to introduce a digital platform.
So you feel that youths are not also corrupt?
The youth that you see that is engaged in corrupt practices are being masterminded or planned or sent or sponsored by these old incompetent politicians. You just mentioned one of the old incompetent politicians that have shown interest to run for the office of the president, right? Some days ago, a spokesperson was asked, how did your candidate make his money from just being a financial secretary of a company? Now you are one of the richest men in Africa, right? That is corruption. If you take such people away from the system, Nigerians will have a lot of money to take care of themselves. I will tell you the truth as we speak today. There are many of these old incompetent politicians that are richer than their states.
Now,
right?
Victor, let's not get into talks of, let's stay on the issue. We're not discussing people. We're not discussing people here. My question to you is this. Are you going to be seeking for competent people to work for you in your government, or just, or the quality anyone needs is just be a young person? Because you've been using the word old, incompetent generation, and you said the corruption amongst the youths is masterminded. If you look at the moral decadence in society, if you look at advanced free fraud, you look at cyber fraud, I don't think they're godfathers behind that, but that's an issue for another day. Are you interested in competence or just young people?
Oh, sir, you already know what I stand for. I stand for competence, right? But the truth about it, if you have competence and you don't have the will to legislate and set Nigerians free from poverty and corruption, it's still going to have a problem. If we still have these same old incompetent politicians in the system, no matter how competent you are, you cannot deliver a developed Nigeria, right? So what I'm saying, our first problem, you and I know that you live in this country, I live in this country. We know our problem. Forget about this whether we are on air. Let's start calling out our problem just the way it is. If an aspirant can have 2 billion van in his compound as a day to an election, are you going to call that person competent? No. What we are saying here is that for me, my candidacy, we stand for competency. But because he asks, how are we going to tackle corruption? Corruption is caused by two systems, the human system and the digital system. But what I'm saying, I am going to introduce a digital system that will bring corruption to the barest minimum. What I mean as of today is that anything you have to pay to government will definitely pass through a digital system. So we know what Nigeria is making every day, every hour, every minute. There are bigger companies, bigger countries that can give you statistics of what they make per hour, right?
Okay, Victor, sorry, because of time, we won't be able to continue with this conversation. Thank you very much, Victor Ani-Laju. Thanks for sharing your thoughts with us on the conversation.
Thank you for having me. More time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Victor had so many things to say, talking about the crop of leaders that we have. But we'll have a quick break. And when we come back, Abdul Lateef Ahmed will be joining us to discuss the attempted coup in Burkina Faso and West Africa. We'll be right back.
You Welcome back to the conversation. We're now turning our attention to coups in West Africa. While there have been successful coups in Mali and Guinea, there have also been reports of an attempted coup in Burkina Faso. In recent days, the military prosecutor's office in Burkina Faso issued a statement that said 8 soldiers were arrested for plotting to destabilize the country and were under investigation.
Now, Burkina Faso has been rattled by increasingly deadly Islamist militant attacks and widespread protests over insecurity. Analysts warn the military may be unhappy with the government and its effort to halt the attacks. Now, Abdul Latif Ahmed joins us now. He is the head of research monitoring at desk right here on News Central TV. Okay, so Abdul Latif, let's talk about issues of Burkina Faso. Media reports have named a Lieutenant Colonel Emmanuel Zungrana as one of the soldiers being taken into custody. Now, records suggest that President Roch Kabore in December relieved Lieutenant Colonel Zungrana of his post after an attack on a military base in northern Burkina Faso left at least 49 troops dead. This is an attack on the security force. Now, does the recent sacking of military-led leaders have anything to do with the attempted coup?
Well, thank you for having me. One thing we should be very clear about is the fact that there was an antecedent. There's a military culture or a culture of sticking to a leader that has stayed too long in power. That was former President Blaise Compaoré, and the fact that when the new president came in, he needed to reorganize the army. However, he could not figure out a structure where he would have people who are both competent and loyal to his government. And that is why when 49 soldiers were said to be killed in one fell sweep, one of the worst in the history of the country, there was a lot of reaction across the country. The president needed to scapegoat someone. He needed to take someone down as a show of concern on the security situation in the country. Investigation did show that those 49 soldiers ran out of supplies. For 2 weeks, they were on the front lines, and they could not get supplies. And so you do not expect soldiers to be that effective after running out of supply. What happened while they were there? So someone needed to be sacked or shown the way out just as a show of saying they are doing something about the situation in the military.
Now, Abdul Latif, we've seen coups recently in Guinea and Mali, and we saw how ECOWAS clamped hard on the coup in Mali by giving them sanctions. I'm sure they did this as a deterrent to stop people from planning, to stop soldiers from planning coups. Do you think there's a contagion effect of coups, especially in the West African sub-region?
What we are seeing, for which coups are beginning to become exciting in the eyes of some security officers across the Sahel, is the weaponization of poverty. You'll realize that there is a lot going on in the Sahel belt in terms of this window of cross-border crimes happening across countries in the region. When you have that, it also means that there's a lot of weaponization of poverty for which the countries are becoming more fragile. The government is not responding to the immediate demands of the people, and therefore the army is looking at anything that could upstage the democratic government and for them to get into power. A fragile state is not easy to control.
So the underlying conditions are there that encourage the military to take over.
Yes, poverty essentially. I mean, when poverty is weaponized, people have less jobs, people have do not have access to their farms. You have, for example, what you have in Burkina Faso is an interference from mostly Mali, northern Mali, where you have the Fulani ethnic group against the Dogon tribes. And so you have all of this coming in, and it is ensuring that people are unable to get to their farms. People are unable to go for their trades. And the more you continue to do this, the less access people have to finance and to pursue their livelihoods. And then these situations makes citizens even unable to believe in their government. And therefore, when people do not believe in their government, there's a disconnect. Unscrupulous soldiers or folks in the army could think, well, this is the best chance for them to take out the government and then use a strong arm against the people.
Okay, from analysis, we know that some officers in the military are disgruntled by the surge of insecurity and believe that a coup will bring about security stability. Do you believe so, or will the country further plunge into further despair?
Definitely, the military taking over means that, one, the constitution will be suspended. Dissenting voices and, civil liberties will be suspended. And it therefore means that there's going to be a spiral into more violence, more repression, and it will not speak well for the country, because as long as popular votes and popular participation is not allowed in the country, there cannot be the needed peace that we expect in the country.
Now, we've seen a lot of protests, especially last year, against President Christian Kabore's administration's failure to quell the jihadist insurgent, upturn the state of the Burkina Faso economy. A lot of civil society groups too have come out to protest against the president. Do you think this has an impact on the coup culture and why there was an attempt to change his administration? And the soldiers are not generally trained to manage countries. They're there to protect its territorial integrity.
Okay, so what you have is an interplay between security spending, the budget for the economy, and the peaceful atmosphere for which enterprise will thrive. So unless there's a balance between these three, you cannot have the needed peace for which enterprise will thrive when there is instability or when there's insecurity. So when you have less spending, or when you have more spending on the military, and there is misappropriation because there's a lot of poverty in the land, and people who should ordinarily spend on security funding divert such funds to meet up with the demands of the poor. What happens is that you are unable to secure the country, and therefore the atmosphere is created where you cannot run your normal businesses. And then when you cannot run your normal businesses, there will be apathy, there will be anger, there will be a lot of disunity in the land. So these issues are interrelated, and unless they are tackled headlong, it will continue to spiral into a worsening situation.
Okay, Gbenga rightly brought about protests that happened in November, and we know that this also brought about the resignation of the Prime Minister in the country. Now, how would you assess, how was the impact of that resignation of the Prime Minister, because it was a big blow on the government, and how would you assess Kabore's administration so far? Do you feel resignation should also be an option for Kabore since the Prime Minister resigned?
Well, a country like Burkina Faso has a lot of layers of complex issues fighting for attention at the same time. It was ideal that the Prime Minister did resign, because people were fed up with the direction the country was going. People would have assumed that the president himself would cave in and resign. However, he has continued to say that the spendings on military is sufficient. The support that he gets from the French forces has been helpful, and that insecurity is not something you can nip in the bud in one day. But those who are protesting also have every reason to protest, because how do you have over 5,000 French forces in the Sahel claiming to protect the lives and properties of people, but you have worsening security situation, you have more attacks, you have apathy, you have people who are unable to run their daily lives because of the escalation of violence. So it was in order that he did resign. It showed that people's protests meant something to the government. It was enough for people to begin to reimagine or believe in the government of Roch Kabore.
Ablatif, we've seen a situation where the democratic governments do perpetrate themselves in government for eternity, especially in West Africa. We've seen the situation with Faure Yadema Nasingbe in Togo. We've also seen Blaise Compaoré before he was forced to flee the country, and recently, before the coup happened in Guinea. My question to you is this. ECOWAS as a regional body is always the first to step in with sanctions when things go bad, when there's a change in government. Can a regional body like ECOWAS intervene in ensuring that there's a stable and good quality of governance, which is one of the issues, which is one of the reasons the military boys always use as an excuse to come into government, so as to prevent these coups from happening when they see their handwriting on the wall?
Okay, so for ECOWAS, most times it is too little too late, because the issues for which countries snowball into a push or a coup d'etat is usually things that you can see in plain sight, and things that you can tackle before it becomes worsened. Why I say this, for example, is that the indices of the HDIs are known or are published almost on an annual basis, for which these countries that intervene by simply slamming countries, with a sanction, should have been able to say, with these indices, with these issues that have been raised, we should be able to tackle X, Y, Z ahead of time. But they do not do that. Everybody runs his own show, and they only come up when there is a coup. And these coups actually affect the citizens more than it affects the leaders in power. It means that most people in the country cannot export, they cannot import, they cannot transport themselves to neighboring countries, probably where they interact and do their businesses. And so most times the pronouncements do not end up achieving the desired effect.
Okay, let's look at the effect of colonial powers on the country. If you look at why African states are getting more coups recently, look at Guinea, look at Mali, somehow, I don't want to put it as Francophone countries, but if you look at it, we have major coups in Francophone countries. So what exactly is the impact of international influence on the countries? Do you feel this is one of the reasons why African states are getting more prone to coups lately?
Yes, I feel strongly so. There is no reason why African countries should be beholden to their colonizers. However, the interaction or the diplomatic relationship between these countries and their colonial masters somewhat make it look like they have to take orders from France. And what it means is that policies that do not favor France, even if they're in favor of the masses, may not fly. And that is why there's a general resentment against French forces in the Sahel. Protests in Mali, protests in Burkina Faso and other parts of the Sahel, essentially because they do not see why the support they get from France in terms of military forces should continue if the security situation is getting worsened. And so it is not enough to blame France. Again, what are the choices of leaders that emerge in these countries? And unless there is there's an overall participation by people across the country, leaders that will emerge at the end of the day will continue to represent only, a section of the country, a few people who are probably big men, big money spenders, who will elect their own friend into government, and then he will just do their bidding and not the bidding of the generality of the masses.
Now, we've seen talking about security in the West African sub-region, especially in the Sahel, where a lot of these coups have been happening lately. Is it time to revisit the security arrangement with international partners, especially France? We've seen Operation Berkane in Mali. There are about 5,000 French troops stationed there, but the situation doesn't seem to improve. Is it time to look inwards? And we do know the military capabilities and look for other ways of solving the security without holding on to our colonial masters.
Okay, what I think about Africa is, in terms of security, is that you do not need to rely on foreign intervention. African problems can be solved by Africans. We see it, we feel it, we know these things. I do not see how those who come in from the outside can know the streets better than we do. However, we do not need to rely on outmoded ways of policing, of security, of taking care of our insecurity. Let's have a unified army where you have representatives from across 54 African countries, which can be deployed at any time there's an emergency. You do not need to wait for special forces, within the regions. When, for instance, as someone who is taking over a country in a coup d'etat, for example, that you are likely to contend with forces that are rounded across the continent, you will do a double take before you take such a decision. Again, African problems do not just happen once. They grow from one issue to the other. Most of these crises you see in the Sahel come from denial. It comes from poverty that has run deep and conflict around land and headers. So until we are able to, for example, create modern irrigation systems to have these headers, instead of moving in the nomadic style that
and
they
ranching,
move, let them be tied to irrigated ranches. And then farmers too cannot continue to farm in the old systems. There has to be modernized systems of farming where they farm smart instead of just being in the farms and sweating it all year round. They need to be able to increase the number of farming seasons, the tons they make within a farming season. These issues will minimize conflicts. It will increase yield. It will increase the chances of export. It will boost local economy, and then it will improve the buying power of the average person. People who have money or people who have access to feeding and the basics of life do not, in most cases, find reasons to become violent. People who are denied of the basics of existence are the ones who delve into these risky behaviors. And that is what most of these units, what's the name again? Most of these militant groups and insurgents, that's what they rely on. They continue to exploit the poverty, the differences between tribe, between religion, between all these ethnic issues. That's what they exploit, and they continue to create mayhem and violence and chaos in the polity.
Thank you very much, Abdul Latif Ahmed, for your contribution. It's a good place to live in. We do appreciate you for joining us on the conversation today. Okay, that's how much we can take on the conversation today. We started off with youth participation in Nigerian politics, spoke to presidential aspirants, and we also looked at the current situation in Burkina Faso, where the president has arrested about 8 military officers for an attempted coup.
That's where we'll leave it. I'm Rita Omodia. Do join us again at 5 p.m. West African time on Monday as we bring in all the topics for a conversation.
And I'm Gbenga, Aborowa. Until next time, bye-bye.